Good morning. My name is Angelina and I'm the naturalist here at Sequoia State Park. This is Sierra.
I'm the assistant naturalist here at Sequoia State Park.
And we are going to take you on the nature loop today. This is one of our favorite hikes. It's 0.6 of a mile and it departs from just behind the nature center. So you can park at the nature center and just walk on down here. It's really pretty. We don't have a lot of our shortleaf pine down in this part of the park. So there are these big woody trees that are beautiful in the fall, and then as you can see, very beautiful in the spring and summer as well. And we're gonna show you some of our favorite things to point out on hikes. We wish that you were here with us. This is one of our favorite parts of our job, is to interact with you and share some passions. Sierra has her degree from Rogers State University in biology, and I have mine from Oklahoma City University. So biology is what we love to talk about. And we wish that you could be here with us, but in the meantime, you can follow us along. The birds are chirping. Hopefully you can hear them. And I have invited an expert to comment and hopefully answer some of your questions. My dad, Dr. Tony Stancampiano, he is a professor at Oklahoma City University, and so he can help ID some of these birds that are chiming in the background and answer some of your questions as we are live talking. So stay tuned for our hike and let's see what we can see today. Okay, So one of the first things that we're going to talk about is how to prepare for a hike. So you can see Sierra has her boots on. She's dressed in colors that are neutral. So she's not going to attract a lot of attention from the animals that we're hoping to sneak up on. And then what's something that people should look out for when they start a hike?
So a big thing is like poison ivy and stuff like that. So we've got some right here. So here's some poison ivy. It always has 3 leaves on a leaflet. So if you see that, definitely stay away from it. I always get a bad reaction from it and it's very itchy. So definitely stay away from that.
So when you're on a hike, you want to be quiet. Obviously today we'll be talking to you to point some things out, but rule of thumb, if you want to see wildlife, be quiet. So we're gonna start here with some of this different bark types. A lot of times people want to look at the leaves of trees to help identify them, which is a great place to start, but think about what percentage of the year trees don't have leaves on them. So when they don't have leaves, they still have their bark. So here we have a hackberry. You can see how rough that bark is. Sierra, you want to touch it? And so it's several centimeters deep. And right now it does have leaves. So you can look at these different leaf types. I wrote a little guide out for you. So there are 2 things that you're looking for when you're looking at leaves to identify them. One is the leaf itself and how it's shaped. So these leaves they're not quite smooth on the edges.
Serrated.
Yeah, they're serrate. So think of like a serrated knife that you use, like a bread knife. And then also the arrangement of the leaves.
It's on a leaflet.
So these guys have leaflets, according to Sierra. She's more fresh out of school than I am. So here is another distinct bark type. This is a persimmon tree, and this bark is really, really pretty. Oh, I've got a little... Do you see that caterpillar?
Oh, yeah.
It's so cute. That's tiny. Put your finger up next to it for scale. Look how little that is. Oh, it's so cute. So what is bark? Seems like an obvious question. Bark is the outermost layer of the tree, and it's the tree form that you're going to see the most. And so inside the tree you have the cambium. It's the really tasty, soft tissue. It's a lot of dead cells. It surrounds the xylem and the phloem, which are the internal structures which move nutrients and water up and down the tree. And then there's the outer cork, and then you have the bark, which is what we see from the outside. The purpose of the bark is multifaceted. So one, it's just providing some good outer layer protection from the wind, so keeping that tree from drying out on the inside. And then another thing is to help protect it from predators. So think about insects and mammals that would be wanting to eat the soft tissue or the sap from inside the tree. So this bark is a layer of protection. And so different bark has evolved on different trees for different purposes. It may help in really dry regions. It has really thick bark to help it from drying out, or it has bark that helps protect it from fire in regions where fire is prevalent. And this persimmon bark is my newfound favorite. I think it's so cute.
Ask my said to speak up.
Okay, talk louder. Okay.
Do you want to point out a nurse tree?
Yeah. Here's an example of a nurse tree. I brought a board so I can write down some of these words for you because I know it can be hard to hear, or sometimes science words are strange. So it's a nurse tree, just like you think of the word nurse, like a nursing mother or a nurse that takes care of you. It is this tree that is keeping its nutrients in this environment and allowing for all those future things that come along to use it for nutrients. So if you look closely here, you can see signs of invertebrates that have been burrowing out. I mean, it's really beautiful, this pattern here. And so I'm sure this is full of ants, probably some centipedes, some beetles, maybe even some termites. So this tree was cut down and it was left here because it's still full of all those nutrients that this tree produced during its lifetime. And now you have these decomposers coming in. So you'll have some mosses and some fungi in here, and they're breaking it down so that then the next layer of the ecosystem can come in and eat that, ingest that, and those nutrients will move up the food chain. And we have these things here, which a lot of times kids think these are caterpillars. These are actually catkins. So I'll write that word down for you. So these are catkins. They are produced by trees, even like willow trees have catkins. You might see those like ornamental, the big willow stems that you see in like craft stores to put in vases that have the white fuzzy parts at the end. And catkins are a bunch of little unisexual flowers that are used as wind dispersal by certain plants. So they produce these, they're lightweight, and they can be carried off by the wind to help that tree reproduce.
Mostly my apples.
So here we have a bunch more catkins, but these are May apples. So what month is it? For those of you at home who have lost track of time, it is May. And here you can see what's colloquially referred to as an apple. It's the little fruiting part. And May apples are this whole collection here. So they're colonial, they have a rhizome, so they have a shared root system. And they come up this time of year, and when they're green, they're actually poisonous. Every part of them is poisonous. When they turn yellow, some people will use them to make things like jelly, and they are not poisonous when they're yellow and in small doses, but I don't recommend it at home, so just leave them be. They are used for some medicinal purposes, like in wart treatment, but they're an interesting plant that comes up, and they're aptly named for this region because they are producing this fruit in May. When I go on hikes, a lot of times I like to take a notebook with me, but I also like to use the iNaturalist app and make record of what I saw. So it's interesting to me just to know what things I saw, what time of year, when. But also on the iNaturalist app, you're contributing to a citizen science effort.
And again, this hike is 6/10 of a mile, so it's not quite a mile long. It's pretty short, and it's very, very beautiful.
We talk a lot, people come to the park and they want to see big animals, and we get that, megafauna. They want to see a coyote or a fox or a bald eagle, and those are charismatic, cool species. But when you're with a group and you're just going on a leisurely hike in the middle of the day, you're probably not going to see a lot of those animals. But you can always look for signs of animals. Here, a squirrel ate a nut. And obviously you have squirrels at home, and that might not be so cool to you, but it's cool to us. Look at these. I think we have 7 species of squirrel types here in the park. So this is probably a gray squirrel. We also have fox squirrels, flying squirrels. This is one of my favorite little areas on this hike. I think it's so cute. So these are ferns, which oftentimes when I say fern, I refer to it as if, look at this spider. I refer to it as if there's just one type of fern. Actually, there are like 10,500 different species of ferns in the world. And ferns are interesting for many reasons. One is they're first found in the fossil record like 360 million years ago. So they're a really old plant. And they are vascular. So they have xylem and phloem, that specialized tissue, which, like I said with the trees, moves nutrients and water up through the plant. And they produce spores. So they don't have flowers or seeds, but they have a sporic phase. So it's a whole very distinct life stage of the plant.
And it is always on the back side, so on these parts of the leaf.
And these are ebony spleenwort ferns, I believe. They look so similar. So ferns are kind of interesting because they don't have a lot of purpose. A lot of people want plants or animals to have a distinct purpose. And so they're not really used in medicine. They're not used as a food. They are ornamental. And another thing that I find interesting about ferns is I think of them as being a tropical species, but really they live in all kinds of environments. On top of mountains where few other plants can live. I mean, here they're living next to this rock. There's not a lot of water here. And later on we'll see them growing right next to cactus, which, as we know, are not a wet species. What do you see?
Deer.
Oh, so we have some white-tailed deer, which is probably hard for you to see, but there are at least 3, 4. Those are nice sized deer.
Oh, there's like 5.
Yeah, there's a bunch of deer back in there. This is So white-tailed deer, Odocoilus virginianus, and this is a group that hangs out in this area often. They're herbivorous, so they're just munching on all this beautiful vegetation in this area. Their ears are up, so they're definitely keeping an eye on us, but they're still kind of going about their business. This time of year, a lot of deer have fawns. A lot of animals in general have young. So it's a good reminder to just give them their space. And if you do find a fawn, you should leave it where it lays. The fawns can be left for many, many hours while the parent is feeding. If it's there for several days, it might be time to intervene. Okay, here. These are some beautiful flowers that I just discovered yesterday. This is an Eastern bee balm. I described it as a cross between an orchid and a passion flower. It's really crazy and beautiful. This is a native plant, but it's oftentimes found in arboretums, or you can buy it for your home garden. This time of year is crazy because everything is so fleeting. Everything's so ephemeral. There were way more of those flowers yesterday, and they were standing straight up. And so just by a day, we could have missed them.
There was a phoebe.
Yeah, so I heard the phoebe. So my dad's commenting, we heard the tufted titmouse. The tufted titmouse says, Peter, Peter, Peter. Phoebe's saying, Phoebe. The Carolina wren says, tea kettle, tea kettle, tea kettle. And so when I say that a bird says something, obviously the bird is not speaking. The bird does not know that it is saying a word that we have transformed into an English word. So that is called mnemonics. Let's see if I can spell it correctly. So mnemonics, it's a device that we apply to these bird terms so that we as humans can better remember them. So we listen. Some say teacher, 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 or chickadee-dee-dee-dee. And then there's the mockingbird, which can say all of the above and really throw you. There are several mimic species, and they'll mimic a certain amount of times. So we have a mockingbird that is living just outside of our barred owl enclosure. It was nesting there last year as well. It's a pair of northern mockingbirds. And so the other night I was checking on our owl and she was calling. And then there was a second barred owl calling. And I was excited because I thought Pretty Girl had a boyfriend. And then I realized that the pitch was different. And it was the northern mockingbird had learned the barred owl call, which the mnemonic is, who cooks for you? So Pretty Girl does not have a boyfriend that I know of. So here we have some non-vascular plants. So I talked to you about, this is a different type of fern here, which is a vascular plant that is producing by spores. And then this is non-vascular. So this is a moss, and it does not have xylem and phloem. It does not have those internal structures to transport water and nutrients. So it has to remain short, close to its base, because it has no way to transport. This is just, so right here, let's look at this 1 square foot patch of forest. There's a cool book, Forest Unseen. They look at a square meter of forest throughout the year. So truly, you can look at such a small scale and learn so much. So we have catkins, which we talked about. We have these non-vascular plants. We have several different kinds of vascular plants. here we have lichen. So lichen are a symbiotic relationship between a fungi and an alga. So there's many different kinds in here, different ruffles, different colors and different textures. And then also right here we have some mushrooms. So scientists are very deliberate with their naming. And we don't do that to be uppity. We don't do that to try and seem more educated or more knowledgeable. We do that for a reason, because describing things means something different in the scientific community. Describing them means identifying all of their characteristics and using those tools to learn more about them. So a lot of times people have problems with terms like animals and insects. Well, you know, insects are animals. They're not mammals, which we might think of as being animals, but insects are animals too. Another thing is fungi. So fungi is part of its own kingdom. So it's kingdom fungi, kingdom animalia, and kingdom plantae. So those are very, very distinct things. Families are huge groups. That's a big, big level of classification. So fungus is its own entity. It's not a plant at all. And just like lichen are part algae and part fungi, they're not plants either. And this is really soft and moist. Wish you could feel this. It's got a little Lepidoptera. So the pollinators are going crazy this time of year. The butterflies, the bees are the charismatic ones. But pollinators are a lot of different things. So beetles, ants, wasps, moths are oftentimes overlooked as pollinators. Okay, here we have a beautiful patch of this bee balm. So this is bee balm, and there's a bunch of different varieties that are all colloquially or horticulturally known as bee balm. So this is something that you can buy and plant in your own yard. So it's native, but it's also obviously very beautiful. Another example is the passion flower, which is another native that is just an extraordinary looking flower. And when our hike is over today, we will post an album with links to articles and pictures of all of these things close up. So if you want to do further research or further reading about what we talked about today, we'll put that all in one cohesive place. We could nerd out all day about this stuff, and we do.
There's red cedar right here.
So here is an eastern red cedar. Oftentimes this is misidentified as an invasive species. It is native, so it's not invasive, but it is an encroaching species. So they grow in all kinds of environments, and when they invade an environment, it makes it hard for other trees to grow. And they're highly combustible, they're full of resin, so they're not a good tree to have close to your house or have in multitudes because they are not good when there is a fire. So this is something that we try and remove a lot of, just to limit that threat. That's a good service project. We had BioBlitz here last year, removed a ton of eastern red cedars from along one of our heavily trafficked trails. Wild onion. Man, the smell. You want to talk about that?
So this is wild onion right here. Generally it just looks like a normal onion. It just has the normal top, but it's actually producing more right now. So in this area, a lot of people eat wild onion and eggs. It's a very popular thing. I introduced it to Angelina. She loves it.
Very good.
So.
It is illegal to remove things from the park though, so you can see we're not even taking it because it's not ours. If we were to take it, then none of you could enjoy it. And then it wouldn't produce for next year. And it wouldn't feed the animals in our park.
And a big thing that a lot of people think is okay to remove, like fossils and stuff like that. Yeah, it's cool to get to see it, and you know, it's awesome. But you're removing that, and people, you know, future hikers and visitors are not able to see that. And also sheds of antlers. Do you want to point out the?
Oh, yeah. So here's some cactus. Cactus, similar to ferns, to me, I pretend like there's just one kind. And so Opuntia, they're all Opuntia here, I'll write that down.
There's fern traps there too.
You can remember it because, so the way that I remember a lot of things, especially in the scientific world, is I relate them to something. So now I know the word Opuntia, but when I was learning that, think about cactus and how you run into them in the woods and they just punch you out of nowhere. And so like I was saying earlier, we know that cactus dwell in places with not a lot of water, right? So these pads here are full of fleshy material and they maintain their water really well. And they have these spikes to prevent their their spines, to prevent animals from eating them because, one, it's a fleshy fruit-like pad, but also it's full of water. And then right next to it is a fern, which you think of, or I think of, as growing in a really moist area. So you can see that ferns grow in a lot of different environments. But again, there's some moss right here, which we know has to grow in a moist environment. So this is a unique collaboration of plants right here. We can talk about some leaf shapes. So if you're starting out and hoping to identify some different things out on your hike, a great place to start is plants. Clue, they don't move. Second, they're out all day. Third, you can take pictures and stare at them for a long time and be able to easily identify them. So you can see this leaf here. This is soft. And like we were talking about on the trees, there's two things you're looking for. So the shape of this leaf and then this leaf in relation to the other leaves. So you can see how these leaves branch off from the same point, and so does that next set right there. So they're alternate. So I made a little chart for you. Oh, I mean opposite. So they are exactly across from each other. If they were alternating, they'd be alternate. And then whorled are plants that are a lot of times basal, so they have a bunch of leaves coming off from the same exact spot. And then glaucids, Priscilla, thank you. Glaucids are these little things, the spiky parts that get in your skin. So another part of looking at the leaf is how that leaf is shaped. So dentate, it's named like dental, like your tooth. They look like the zigzaggy tooths. And then serrate, like a serrated knife. Double serrate is where the big leaf is serrated and then each individual piece is again serrated. Lobed and palmate. Those are more obvious to me. These I kind of get confused on. And then entire. So these are entire. You see they don't have any kind of little modifications on their edge. Hi Amanda at Grand. Thanks for tuning into our... We haven't gotten very far. Okay, so this one's an alternate. You can see how the leaves are alternating left and right and one at a time. I think so far we've heard American robin, the tufted titmouse, the eastern wood kiwi, the phoebe. I expect you to be making a list, Dad. We'll share info later.
It's a bunch of cactus right there.
Yeah. So it's always a good rule to stay on the trail, just because you don't want to be eroding the edges. It makes the trail disappear.
Probably should have hot spotted to you. Didn't think about that. Oh, we're back.
Okay, we're back. That was perfect timing. It was the ugly spot, so now you guys will never see it. You'll think the whole trail is beautiful. We planned that on purpose.
And this is locust right here. I don't know what kind though.
So let's look at these leaves. If you've never tried to identify plants or identified birds before, you'll find that it's a game. And that's what makes it so fun. So we've gone on trips, on ecology trips, where at the start, students thought there were ducks, and then there were little birds. And those were the two kinds of birds. Maybe they knew cardinal. But there are so many different types
There's yucca.
that you'll find it's like a game to try and look at all the different little pieces that make each species so different from one another, distinct things. And then it's like a game trying to learn them all and trying to see them again and see if you remember. Yeah, here's some yucca. It looks like it's about to flower. So I like plants and animals that their binomial is easy to learn. So for example, bison, it's bison. Yellow-headed blackbird, Xanthocephalus, yellowhead. Yucca is yucca. Plant names I can get behind, 101.
And then this is greenbrier over here. So a lot of people don't like these plants because they've got spines on them. As you can see, they're really hard to get up. They have a very unique root system that's very long and knotty, and definitely hurts when it pokes you. But I've come to find out from raising goats, goats love them. So if you got some goats, I'll take them out for you.
This is Smilax, colloquially greenbrier, but Smilax has like 300 to 350 species in that genus. And I think these are pricules, not thorns. I learned that in botany. So every rose has its thorn. It's totally misleading. Don't believe pop culture about botanical names. I learned that from my botany professor. But I have some great botany jokes that I can tell you later that I also learned from him. So people always question like mosquitoes and ticks and things like this that are pokey. What's their purpose? Why do we have them? Why did they evolve like that? What do they do for us? So these actually produce some nectar that Lepidoptera, so moths and butterflies, really like. They also protect cover for small animals that are otherwise defenseless. So small, like think about field mice, can go and hide under here, and then bigger things can't get to them because they have this spiky cover. What else? I'm trying to convince myself that these are awesome. Oh, they have berries throughout the winter so that birds and other animals can feed on them when there's not a lot of other food available. So you have to think of everything in a positive light, try to put a good spin on it for why we have it.
And they're actually edible, the leaves are. So you gotta watch it though. They do have little pokies on the back. In botany, they had us taste them. The closest thing I could say it tastes like is grapes and lettuce combined. It's very weird. Landon says hi. Hi, Landon. And also, Tony said white-tailed deer love to browse on the Smilax.
So the white-tailed deer will eat the Smilax, and they'll also eat poison ivy. So, you know, deer obviously aren't a nuisance species unless you have a garden that you're trying to maintain. But they do eat a lot of things that aren't ideal.
Passion fruit.
Here is another sign of a squirrel. They're really funny. I used to study squirrels, so I watched this in action, getting a pine cone, and they eat it like corn on the cob. It's adorable. My squirrels did not love me, and so I swear they would eat this above me and just shed little pine cones all over me. You want to talk about it?
So, right here, this vining plant is called passion flower. So, she mentioned it earlier. It has a very beautiful, ornate purple flower. It doesn't look like it belongs in Oklahoma, if you ask me, because it's just so different and pretty. It also produces a fruit that is edible. So, but also make sure you know what a plant is before you go and try to eat it, because a lot of people assume they know what something is, and turns out they don't.
This is one of our favorite parts of the trail. So Sierra weed eated in here. As you can see, our trails are maintained. If you ever come across one that's looking rough, let us know, and we'll go out and fix that. So, I mean, this scene is just so beautiful to me. These huge rocks covered in different lichen, and even like, look at this color. I mean, that's an insane color. It's so pretty. But sadly, you can see right next to it, someone graffitied this rock. And that's a problem we run into at the park. Luckily, it's not a big problem. Most of our visitors are great, and I know they're out picking up trash and cleaning up after other people. But it is sad that visitors will do something like that. So here's a big pine, which is unusual for this area of the park. But you can see it has a plant growing on it. So hopefully you can see, you know, pines have pine needles, which are a modified leaf. And then these have another plant on top of them, which is this 5-leaf thing, and then it also has some of that smilax growing on it. And then it has this too. Dang, poor plant. So it has several epiphytic plants. So I'll write that down. So epiphyte. Epi, like epidermis, on the surface of, and phyte, meaning plant. So it's a plant that grows on the surface. And so this plant has several epiphytic plants growing on it, and it's really weighing it down, literally. The plant is really sagging. And so epiphytic plants can be parasitic, they can be hemiparasitic. I'll write that down too. So a hemiparasite, hemisphere, so partially parasitic. So it's sucking nutrients, it's making its home on the plant, but preferably not killing the host plant all the way, because then it won't have a home and it won't have nutrients anymore. I'm a visual learner and I love etymology, and so hopefully it's helpful. Let us know if writing down the words to show you helps you remember it or helps you understand what we're saying. I know I can speak quickly, but I do speak like Siri, apparently. This is just a really pretty area.
it looks like.
Yeah, so we hope that some cool animals live in these dens. There's really cool rock crevices. What's squawking, Dad?
Oh look, got a hollowed out crevice.
So this tree might appear ugly to a lot of people, but this is a great home for a lot of animals. So many animals are cavity nesters, so like a barn owl, woodpeckers, squirrels. So they don't create their own nest, or they don't use a nest box. They use these cavities. So this one's a little diagonal. They might not choose this one, but sometimes it's when you have the option on your property, it's a good idea to leave some of these because they are great habitats for some animals that you would like to attract. Oh, this is a hilarious tree that I noticed for the first time yesterday. So see, there's all these different knobs coming out of it, and look at them and see if they look like anything to you. So this one, to me, I see the elephant from, what's the little boy cartoon on Disney? Where they're the bear, Baloo.
Oh, Jungle Book.
Jungle Book. So this looks like the elephant from Jungle Book. I don't know why that particular elephant. And that looks like a cow.
I was getting more of like a reindeer vibe.
Yeah. Or from Frozen.
Yeah.
That.
Caribou.
Yeah. So like its head and its ear. And then all these other little knobs.
He said it's a blue-gray gnatcatcher.
Blue-gray gnatcatcher. My dad taught me everything I know, but he hasn't taught me everything he knows. So just over here you can see the lake. We've recently had the power line company come through, and so some of these areas are more cleared out than they normally would be. But a great thing, I love shorebirds and waterbirds. So here at the park you have this wooded area, you have a piney area, so you have different little niches of songbirds that you might see, but then also there's a lot of terns, there's of course the double-crested cormorants, American white pelicans, and then other various beach nesting and water birds. The deer are running up ahead again. A little butterfly. Someone sent me a picture the other day of a Luna moth. I'll put a link to that in the comments. But these Luna moths look like they're photoshopped. They are so beautiful. They have like a 6-inch wingspan. They're bright green. They're moths, so they have this ornate antennae. And they don't have mouthpieces. So they don't eat in that stage of their life at all. They eat as a caterpillar, and then they become this beautiful moth that has like a 3-day lifespan. And so keep an eye out on the underside. I can't remember what type of tree they prefer. I think it's an elm, but they have a distinct type of tree that they prefer, and you can find them on the underside of their leaves.
Well, there's something moving. Oh, a turtle!
Oh, man, we couldn't have planned this if we tried. That's cool. You want to talk about your turtle?
So, this is a box turtle. And it looks like an ornate box turtle to me. Can't really see his face though. There we go. Oh, he's so cute. Look at his face. At the Nature Center we have, I believe, 5 turtles. They're actually tortoises, but the name is box turtles. Very cute.
And so the difference, there's a lot of differences between turtles and tortoises. Tortoises are land dwelling, so you can see this box shape. Obviously it's not gliding through the water, and it has this dome shaped carapace to hide within. And then its feet are not webbed, it's not swimming, it doesn't have fin-like feet, it has nails. So, hi, you're beautiful. Oh, so this top part is called a carapace, and the bottom part is called the plastron. And you can see all these distinct little areas on it. Some people also think that turtles move from shell to shell as they grow, like a hermit crab, but their shells actually grow with them. So if it's girdled, like I've seen pictures on the internet of soda rings getting around a turtle when it's small, and as it grows, it's girdled. So its shell grows with them. Hey, buddy. So right now is the time of year where you're seeing turtles crossing the road. So I'll demonstrate for you. So if you see a turtle on the road, say you're driving and the turtle's on this side, if it's safe for you to pull over and do so, pull over to the shoulder, and you're going to pick up that turtle like this, so it can't get you and it's nice and secure, and you're going to move it low and slow so that you don't scare it and you don't potentially drop it, and you're going to move it in the direction it was going. So it might make sense to you to just turn it around on the side of the road where it was versus crossing the whole road, but he's set on going somewhere, so you're helping him where he's going. So we're going to return this one to where we found him, and they can live, depending on the species of turtle, 40 to 100 years, and their home range is tiny, like less than a mile radius. And so if you move him to another area, he's lost. He's not going to know where he is. He's going to be trying to find his way back for decades. And a lot of times they don't produce a whole lot of viable young. So you want to ensure that they're reproducing in that area. So don't move turtles, please. Just across the road. Let them go on their way. Oh, there's a little moth. See if you can catch it.
You mean catch it?
No, I mean catch it on video.
Oh.
So I always mess up the differences between moths and butterflies. So moths lay with their wings flat, like this is doing, whereas butterflies have their wings folded up. Moths have long, fuzzy antennae, and butterfly don't. And moths are normally nocturnal, whereas butterflies are diurnal. There's another one right here. See if you can see this tiny one. There's a tiny little moth right there. So Priscilla pointed out male box turtles have red eyes while females' eyes are brown. We always mix that up. We always know it's red and brown, but we can never remember which way is which. And scoots, each little segment around their carapace is called a scoot. The same term for bands on an armadillo. And researchers will file the scutes with a special numbering system for long-term research projects, so you can mark an individual turtle. Then if you catch it again, you know which turtle it is. You can measure its growth, you know, how far it's moved, that it's still alive, approximate age. I think maybe Jude is watching. Jude throw them in. Hi Jude if you're watching.
There's some pretty.
You want me to go over there since you don't have fencing? You good? So if you've ever been on a hike with me before, you'll know that I love fungi. There's some beautiful fungi on here. And again, catkins, if you don't have that term memorized by now. And then more evidence of squirrels. I love squirrels. Also, this is a great place to find snakes. So some of you want to find snakes. Others of you are looking to avoid snakes. So act accordingly. But these big overturned logs like this, be really careful when you're stepping over them because it's a great place for a snake to hide. Right there in that shadow.
It's been burrowing around here.
Morning dove. So it's not in the morning, it's morning as in crying, dove. There's a woodpecker. I don't know if you can hear it. We have downy and hairy, pileated, red-headed, northern flickers. So woodpecker is another one that people think there's one kind of woodpecker. There's a lot of different species of woodpecker. The kicker is most of them are black and white and red. So it's a matter of looking where the red is on their body, their overall size. Northern flickers often are feeding on the ground, so where they're feeding. That's a mean looking plant.
It's thistle.
What is it?
Thistle.
So this is a type of thistle. There's a lot of different species of thistle. Some are invasive. Priscilla made a really cool invasive plant poster a few years ago. It had some thistle on it. So this is an example of a basil plant, right? And it's whorled. Priscilla, correct me if I'm wrong. Where all these leaves are coming out of the same point at the base here. And it is spiky. Here's another example. This tree's still alive. I inspected it yesterday, but it has some cool cavities in it.
This is from a woodpecker.
Another reason that we like this hike, since we're a peninsular park, we're only so wide. It's about 4 miles long, but varying depth at different places. And so we don't have a lot of big loop trails. And it's just because of the way that our park is shaped. So this is one of the few that's a loop, which is nice because you end up at the same place where you started. And that's great for parking and just relative direction. Two apps that I'd recommend, I'll put them in the comments, are the iNaturalist app. The icon is green and white with a bird, and it's really great. You can take pictures and put them in, and it will help you to identify what you saw. And so you can take the pictures and upload them later when you get back from your hike, or you can do it as you go. And I like to do both depending on what kind of hike I'm doing that day and then learn a little something about the species that I saw. And then another one is All Trails. And this app is good for hiking, so it shows you the trails and people can rate them and talk about if it's moderate or difficult, their lengths, etc. But know that this is not monitored by admins, so I don't have any control. So sometimes people make up trails, they call it something different, they loop trails. So this isn't always reliable, but at least you can see where other people went, so hopefully you're not super lost in the woods.
There's a blue jay up there. Oh, you can't see it.
Yeah. So we're back where we started. This is the nature loop, and just to the north is the nature center. You can see it's about 50 meters away. So you can park in that nature center parking lot and come right back here. There's a eastern bluebird. There's another eastern bluebird.
Oh, he's coming.
So we hope you enjoyed our hike with us today. Let us know what you would like to see in the future. Leave your comments, and this video will be posted. And like I said, we'll post a bunch of pictures and links to articles and some of the words that we talked about today. So have a good rest of your day, and I hope you get some vitamin D.